Okay, to start this project off, I'm going to repurpose a piece of frame board that I had an image on before, but I didn't like it. So we're going to go ahead and start preparing this. Now the painted surface is really rough, so I'm going to take some sandpaper and I'm going to sand it down because you really want to have a smooth surface. Even a painted surface should be as smooth as possible. Okay, now that I have this painted wood surface sanded down really nice, I'm just going to use regular old white acrylic paint. Now this is really cheap stuff I purchased at Hobby Lobby. And it's actually going to take me a few coats to cover up this dark image that's showing through after I had sanded it. So I'm going to speed this up, but to explain what's going on is I'm applying the paint, then I'm going to take a blow dryer to it, a hair dryer, to quickly dry it, like in 30 seconds. Then I'm going to add another coat, dry it 30 seconds, and so forth until it's completely covered. It takes about 4 or 5 coats. Now remember, you want this to be as smooth as possible. The more lumps and bumps and ups and downs that you have on the surface makes a transfer much more difficult to perform. So I'm going back and forth with the paint. I'm going to heat it up. I'm going to go over it again until that dark image doesn't show through. But each time I'm going over with the brush, I'm making a real effort to make it as smooth as possible because I really don't feel like sanding it again. Okay, so we have our painted surface. Let's go ahead with our little image here. And I printed out this really pretty image of butterflies, very colorful. And you can see I'm showing there the writing, the typing that you'll find on the back of the quick transfer papers. It says print on the other side. So you want to make sure you print on the correct side. And you use a laser printer. And this is a color laser printer. And it just absolutely colorful image. Really pretty. So I'm just kind of figuring out where I want to put it, so forth. Okay, now here I'm going to show you that I am using the Liquitex matted gel medium. Now, I often use Blick because it's cheaper, and I recommend Blick because it's cheaper. You buy a big old quart of the stuff. But Liquitex definitely works, and I'm sure other gel mediums work. Just make sure it's a gel medium, not Mod Podge or anything else. And I'm going to go ahead and apply a whole whopping bunch onto this board. Now for this first attempt, I'm going to just put gobs of this stuff on here and make it really ridiculously wet. All right. And I'm also not going to use my finger to spread it like I normally do. And so you're going to see me just put just a real large amount on here. Now I'm just going to pat it down with my sponge brush here so it just makes these peaks. And I'm going to do this all over. And I often do this with small transfers, but I'm just going to do this with this large transfer so that you can see what happens here with just gobs and gobs of the gel medium being laid down. All right, look at that. It looks like a textured ceiling or wall, doesn't it? Okay, and you're going to need a roll of paper towels. Trust me, this gets really messy when you use especially this much. All right, and now I'm just going to go ahead and lay this down. What happens when you use way too much gel medium is the paper gets soaked. And when the paper gets soaked, it's going to start to wrinkle, as you're going to start to see, and it's going to give me lots and lots of problems. First, the ooze factor is ridiculous, as you can see. And I'm getting it on the back. That's not a good thing. And I'm showing you things that can happen here. All right. Look at the wrinkles on the paper. Once you get those wrinkles, there's almost no way to get those out. Okay. The paper is shriveling up because it just has way too much gel medium. Okay. You definitely don't want too little, but too much is just too much. So I want you to see what happens here. All right. So I'm trying the best I can to press out those wrinkles. I know that it's going to affect the transfer once we're done. But we're going to go ahead and see what's going to happen here. Look at those bubbles popping up. See how the paper is starting to lift off? Look at that. It is a nightmare. This is a total nightmare. Now I'm showing you this first, what I call the fail, and then we're going to do it again where I'll show you how to do it where you don't have this problem and we have success. And you don't have to waste that much gel medium. Look at how it just keeps lifting up. The paper is soaked, absolutely soaked. And I'm not time-lapsing this here so that you can see everything in real time. Okay, I'm going to try to dry it for about 30 seconds to a minute. Now, normally when you do like small images, like I usually like to get 4 or 5 images on one sheet of paper. I don't usually do big images like this. 30 seconds of blow drying is plenty, especially on untreated wood. In other words, raw, smooth wood surface. With a painted surface, it takes a little more time because the paint prevents the wood from absorbing the gel medium, and so it doesn't become tacky as fast, which you want it to do. So in this case here, I'm going to go 1 minute, but because of the amount of gel medium and the wrinkling, well, I'm not going to give you a spoiler here. We just see for yourself here. Okay, so we're going to finish this blow drying here in a few seconds. Okay, so I took double the time, normally 30 seconds, but I took over 1 minute to do this. And we're going to see that that isn't even enough because we just overdid it. Well, actually I did. Overdid it with the gel medium here. Okay. And I know some people had this problem, and so I wanted to duplicate it so that you can use this video to troubleshoot when you're doing these very large transfers and you're doing it on a painted wood surface. Now, normally I'll just dab up excess water. Always a good idea to do. Helps prevent tearing. But we're going to have an issue here. I won't say anything else. I'll just shut up. Big fail. We didn't even get a transfer. Look at that. How can that be? We had plenty of gel medium. We pressed it like crazy. And look, nothing. Total failure. Okay, there's several things I want you to learn from this. Okay, one of the things is that you don't want to use too much gel medium. Okay, now more is better than less, but when you use too much, the paper is still soaked. Even after I dried it for a minute and 15, it is still soaked from the gel medium. And this also causes a pre-activation of the coating on the paper, which gives unexpected results. So you can see here I am going back with the hairdryer again, figuring, you know what, I'm going to dry this paper and dry that gel medium a little bit more, and let's see if the rest of this comes out at least a little better, even though this whole thing is a fail at this point. But I want you to see what happens here. So this is why I'm leaving this whole thing in real time. Just going back and forth. When I was touching the failed area that I peeled first, it was really wet. That's what made me decide, you know what, let's try drying it even further. To help release the paper, I'm wetting it in the back, which is fine. We just don't want the gel medium to soak the paper. And meanwhile, since we're looking at me trying to find a quarter or something to peel up, you'll see in our second attempt that it's also a good tip to leave yourself a little tab or something that you can easily peel up the paper when it's time to peel. I am just struggling here. Look at this. If you find yourself doing this, okay, you'll know why. Well, look at that. This is so painful to watch. It was such a very beautiful image, and this is the result. And look how I have to roll it just to get it started. Now, if you'll notice, the area that was left last to peel is coming out better than the area where we started. Why is that? Because it had more time to dry. See that? As we come to the end, we can see now we're getting better and better and better transfer, as opposed to when we first started to peel, because it was still wet. And this can be avoided by not soaking the paper with the gel medium to begin with. All right, I think we've seen enough of this, so I'm going to go ahead and prepare this board over again by doing the whole paint routine. Okay, so I went ahead and repainted the surface, got it all nice and smooth, sanded the whole bit, and now I'm going to make my serious project here for my garage. So I went online and looked up garage posters and found zillions of them, and then I just chose one. Notice that it is printed in the mirrored format, so that when you apply it to the wood or whatever surface, it'll come out correctly. So you have to print it mirrored like I just did here. And I'm trimming off the sides, but I'm going to leave the one edge to where I can go ahead and make a tab so it's nice and easy to pull on it. It just makes it so much easier to peel it off when you have something to grab onto to begin with. So I'm using the one edge here and folding over the white part that doesn't have anything, so that I can use it as a pull tab. Then I'm looking for where I want this to go. Next, I'm going to use delicate surface tape or low tack tape, and I'm going to use it to make a nice little area for my pull tab area. And I'm also going to use it to kind of make a boundary, not all the way along the edge, but just enough so that I don't bother putting gel medium all over the board, just within the rectangle area that is marked off by the tape. But first I'm going to make me a nice little pull tab thing here. So I got this tape upside down here so I could stick it on the tab thing. I do all kinds of goofy things like this, you know, just anything I can think of to try to make my life easier. And I make it like a little handle or something. You don't really need to do this. It's just, you know, I like to waste tape. Why not? It's just tape. All right, now it's time to put on the Liquitex gel medium once again. And this time, this is how I would recommend that you would transfer such a large image such as this one. Go ahead and use your sponge brush to apply, just so you can get the material on there. You can certainly scoop it out with your finger too if you want. And you want to make sure that as you're laying it down, you're not laying it down to where you're wiping it off with the brush, but you're leaving enough so that when you go back with your finger, you have plenty of material to spread around. And that is important to do. So I'm just making sure that I'm not ending up with any dry areas, because this does dry relatively quickly. And so you do want to kind of get this done as quickly as possible. And once you've got enough gel medium on there, use your finger and spread it, just nice and quickly though, and make a nice smooth spread across the paper, the board. And you can feel where there's not enough gel medium, if it feels dry or sticky. You want it to be slippery everywhere that you want a transfer to occur. So as you move your finger along, you can feel, does it feel slippery, which means, you know, wet enough so that your finger glides? Or is it sticking, which you need to add a little more? Or is it dry and you'll need to add a little more? And you make sure that you don't have too much of it. You just need it to be slippery. You don't need it to be thick and just globbed on like we did the first time. And so I'm making sure, because I want a 100% transfer all the way to the edge. Go beyond the edge if you don't want to have that tattered look. I like the tattered look on a lot of my transfers, but you may not want that for whatever reason. And so go beyond the edge if you want to make sure that you get everything that you've printed on the paper. And as a quick note again, when you print an image on the paper, don't print beyond the ½ inch mark on all sides. Okay, consider that the non-printing border zone of the paper. Okay, just a little tip there, because we use that area to hold the paper down when it was coated, and so there are areas there that may not allow you to transfer. Okay, we're going to go ahead now and apply the transfer. You notice I'm using my hand here to press it down. The paper is not getting soaked because I didn't put that much gel medium down. It still was slippery, but it wasn't just gobbed. But you are going to get some excess. But notice the difference on how less of an ooze out you're getting. Now, if you don't get any ooze out, I would say you're probably going to be in trouble. So you want a little ooze out, but not that crazy amount. And you're also going to notice something else. The paper isn't wrinkling up. Okay? It's laying down. We're squeezing out the excess, but it's not wrinkling because we're not soaking the paper. We're just getting the air out and we're squeezing out the excess gel medium. And as soon as I have it where everything appears to be well pressed, there's no bubbling, there's no wrinkles, none of that, we'll go to the hair dryer. Now you notice I'm cleaning the brayer, and I'm doing this to make sure that I'm not getting gel medium on the back of the paper, because that would just cause it to put a coating on the back that could prevent moisture from soaking into the paper, and you're going to see why we need that later on. So anyway, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to blow dry it for a couple of minutes. We're not going to do 30 seconds because that's for the really small images that you do on bare wood. This is painted wood. Drying takes longer on painted wood, and the image is much, much larger. So a couple of minutes should be fine. So I'm going to do about, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 minutes. But I'm also going to touch the paper, and that way I'm going to know that it is dry. I want this thing to be dry, okay? And it's not going to be like 100% dry, though it might be. It doesn't matter. You can literally leave this if you want. Though I have found that the transfers are easier to peel if you do it, within a few minutes of applying. So it's better to just go ahead and dry it for a couple of minutes and then peel it rather than just leaving it on there to glue overnight or whatever. Which you can, though. However, you can certainly do that. Okay, after 2-3 minutes, it feels dry to the touch. So I'm going to go ahead and use my sponge brush, and I'm going to start adding a little bit of moisture to the back of the paper. Now, a tip on doing this is that when you apply the water onto the back of the paper, get a paper towel and take that moisture up right away. Now, I would normally do it a little more than that, but I just wanted to kind of take a peek and make sure that I've got a transfer, because if I don't, I'm going to put it back down and roll it and dry it a little longer. But I'm testing it and I'm finding, okay, yes, it looks good. So I'm just going to carefully start peeling. Now, the paper is pretty wet because I'm doing that. And if I neglect to take up the excess water with paper towel, the paper is going to start to tear. So right here, you'll notice I did not take my paper towel and dab it up, and I should have. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to start tearing a little bit. That's not a big deal, but I kind of like to take the sheet off in one big pull. But because this is a really large transfer, you just take it nice and slow with this as opposed to a smaller image transfer. There's really no rush. But as the paper was kind of tearing in some areas and I wanted to pull it up as one sheet, I would just stop, get the rest of it to catch up by rolling it with my finger, and then just start pulling it again. So let's just go ahead and watch. I don't need to do a whole lot of talking here for this part. Now, I may be a little OCD and ADHD and all that other stuff that my wife accuses me of being, because as I'm doing this, I'm doing housekeeping. I'm cleaning up, oh, I see a speck of paper, I got to wipe it off, So as I'm peeling this, I stop and I'm doing little tiny cleanup. Oh, there's a little something there. I'm going to roll that little piece of paper right there. See that? And then I'm going to continue and pull a little bit more. And oh, hey, there's another little piece over here. If you want, just peel the whole thing and then go back and peel the rest of the parts that didn't go because the paper was just excessively wet and was just tearing. But as you can see, we're getting a gorgeous transfer here. And so I'm just doing this because, I'm me. That's just how I operate. I just do it on the way. Okay. See this little paper there? I'm going to pull that up. I'm going to roll it with my finger so it can get off of there, clean it up, and leave you all in suspense. that's just how I roll. I tell you. But look at this. Look at the complete transfer that is happening here. Look at when I pull. Look at that. The paper itself. Do you see how white it is? Because everything has transferred onto the acrylic paint that's on this wood piece. Okay, we're getting a complete transfer here. And I'm putting this in my garage, so, I'm in no hurry. I want this thing to look really good. Okay, now look. Now I'm going to take the paper, look at this, and I'm going to dab up the excess moisture. And I want you to see just how it makes the whole rest of this pull so much nicer. And it's something I should have done in the first place, but yeah, like I said, look, it didn't hurt anything. It just meant that I had to be, doing a little more housekeeping along the way. But watch this, okay? And then you're going to go, you knucklehead, why don't you just do that in the beginning? Well, you go ahead and do it. But yeah, it's always a good idea to dab up the excess water and let the paper retain some of its strength, because when paper is wet, it's weak. It tears easy. But drier paper has more strength. But we do need a little moisture to start off with to allow the release to happen much better. It will happen without it, but you might leave specks and stuff behind, which just moisten it. It's always better to moisten it, but then dab up the excess. So there's another tip for you. Look at that. Just nice and clean. And there I am doing my housekeeping, leaving you guys in the lurch. You have to sit here and wait for me to finish this. Okay. I could cut this out, but I just think it's hilarious that, I do this kind of stuff, it's like I gotta keep it nice and clean as I go. So I'm doing this for myself as well as for you guys, But look at this. It's just gonna come off really nice. And look at the transfer paper as well. There's nothing being left behind on this transfer paper. Okay? So those of you who struggled and maybe ended up like the first time I did this with those butterflies, you now know what you need to do. Okay? Get your fingers wet. Get them with that gel medium all over it. Don't get finicky about it. But look at this. There is nothing on that paper. 100% transfer. And now I'm going to go ahead and remove all this tape and be done with this, and it is ready for showtime, people. And with the magic of editing, we're already done with getting all this tape off of here. All right, Rick, show this thing, will you? Look at that. Is that cool or what? Okay, so maybe I didn't align it perfectly, and my wife got all over me about that, but it's going in my garage. That is pretty cool, isn't it? Look at that. Colorful, beautiful, 100% transfer. All right. So if I can do it, you can certainly do it. There it is. All right, time to take this puppy to the garage.